Higher rates of internalising and externalising behaviour problems are reported in very preterm children. So that's children that are born less than 32 weeks of gestation. And while factors such as parental mental health and the family environment may contribute, there's also likely to be a neurobiological basis to this psychopathology, given the risk for brain injury following very preterm birth and emerging literature linking early brain development to later mental health. And indeed, compared to their full-term born peers, very preterm children display reduced orbital frontal cortex, amygdala and hippocampal volumes, and also white matter microstructural changes, including reduced fractional anisotropy, fibre density and cross-section in key white matter tracts, including the uncinate fasciculus and cingulum. So in this study, we aim to investigate the role of whole brain white matter organisation in internalising and externalising behaviour problems following very preterm birth. And we did this by modelling the brain as a structural connectome or a large-scale network. In this approach, we conceptualised distinct functional grey matter regions as nodes within the network and connecting white matter fibres as edges. And this allowed us to calculate properties of network topology, including the integration within a network and also segregation within a network, so looking at connectivity at a more local level. Using data from the Victorian Infant Brain Study cohort, we assessed whether network integration and segregation was related to internalising and externalising behavioural symptoms concurrently at 7 and 13 years. And we also included an interaction term in our models to assess whether these associations differed between very preterm and full-term children. Internalising and externalising symptoms were assessed by combining subscales of the Strengths and Difficulties questionnaire, which was completed by parents at 7 and 13 years. Structural connectomes were generated by registering T1 images to diffusion-weighted images acquired at 7 and 13 years. I then parcellated the brains into 80 cortical and subcortical regions, and fibre orientation distributions were estimated per voxel and whole brain tractography was performed. This yielded an 80 by 80 connectivity matrix to represent connectivity between each pair of grey matter regions within the brain and was used to calculate measures of network integration and segregation. So at 7 years, poorer network integration, indicated by lower global efficiency and higher characteristic path length, and segregation, indicated by lower local efficiency, was associated with greater internalising symptoms in both the very preterm and full-term children, as indicated by the grey line. However, at 13 years, network integration and segregation weren't associated with internalising behaviour symptoms. And for externalising symptoms, at 7 years, associations between network integration and externalising behavioural symptoms differed by birth group, with evidence for associations within the very preterm group in red here and the full-term group in blue were weak. And at 13 years, higher segregation or higher clustering was associated with greater externalising behavioural symptoms in the very preterm group in red here, but not in the full-term group in blue. So what does this all mean? Well, it's important to note that the structural connectome is proposed to develop or follow a trajectory of increasing integration and decreasing segregation across childhood and adolescence, which is likely to be partly related to increases in axon diameter and myelination of long-range connections with development. Our group has previously shown that very preterm children display a less integrated and more segregated topology than their term-born peers, indicating that this refinement towards a more integrated topology appears to be affected following very preterm birth. So this study indicates that this aberrant white matter organisation has functional implications, with poorer network integration or less efficient information transfer, potentially due to impaired maturation of long-range connections, associated with greater internalising behaviour problems at 7 years, and greater segregation or increased local connectivity associated with greater externalising behavioural problems at 13 years. With that, I'd like to thank the Victorian Infant Brain Study Group and my supervisors. Thank you.